Hello, everybody. I'm Sean Reynolds from Sportsnet, about to be joined by Ken Wiebe from Sportsnet. And this is the Kenny and Renny post-game show. And I got to tell you, before we hop on here, one of my favorite things to do is to peruse the comments before we get on the show. I can dig into them a little bit more. I know there's not a lot, but I always enjoy the people who show up early and leave the comments. Loving this one from James Robinson, who says, "Why do the Islanders hate goals? Did someone hurt them?" I think that's hilarious. It's funny. We knew going into this game, it was, clash of styles. The Winnipeg Jets, one of the best offensive teams in the league, against the Islanders. The only team that had allowed less goals so far this year was the Carolina Hurricanes. So you knew it was going to be a clash of style. Who is going to dictate play? And it was the New York Islanders that did that. I think we'll get into this topic, but I've been talking quite a bit leading into this about the softness of the Winnipeg Jets schedule and how it's about to get a lot harder. And it was going to start tonight against the New York Islanders, and clearly that was the case here tonight. All those nice, pretty, kind of high-flying goals that we've seen the Winnipeg Jets scoring against some maybe lesser defenses, that wasn't flying tonight against the New York Islanders. Of course, the best person that I can think of to talk about this would be Ken Wiebe, who knows all about this kind of stuff. So let's bring Ken in. Best part of the Kenny and Renny show is his entry music. Let's bring it up. Time to bring in Kenny. Ken Wiebe, my friend, thanks for joining us. And I think I've got a ring light at home in my office that I set up on one side. I think I'm going to have to bring it for you, because I have to say, one of my favorite parts of doing the show, the way we've been doing it, usually we do it side by side. Microphone issues have forced you upstairs, but the comments that you get about you being like the interrogating officer, but It reminds me of that Seinfeld episode where Newman is interrogating Jerry, except instead of having the hot lamp on Jerry, he's got it on himself. Incredible. And it just doesn't work out. Love that show. Phenomenal stuff. Ken, how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing fantastic, Sean. I have to be honest. I've had a great day so far. I had a bonus round with my buddy Trevor Kidd on the CJOB pregame show. I was not expecting to see him, and we fired things up with Kelly Moore on the pregame, and now we get to break it down postgame here on a beautiful Saturday night for hockey. We know that wasn't the high-octane game that the fans saw on Friday night, I guess, if you will. It was not wide open. John Chan, I think, described it quite well. A little bit of a suffocating style the Islanders play. But this is one of the reasons why both of you and I both like the Islanders to go deep. I have them going to the Stanley Cup final this year.
Kenny, attaboy. All right.
So we saw this was vintage Islanders. I mean, we're going to talk mostly about the Jets, but opportunistic, yes. Strong defensively, yes. The Jets had ample zone time, Sean, but outside of the great golden opportunity for Scheifele that went wide and Wheelers that went off the bar, they did not have a ton of glorious chances. They did not get to the inside overly well. They were not able to penetrate that defensive shell very often. And Sorokin, the shots that came his way, there were not enough screens or tips. And, it was a pretty easy night for a shutout, I have to say. I mean, yes, he played well, but I think that this was more of the team shutout in my estimation. But having said that, boy oh boy, Sorokin, 3 shutouts. He started all 9 games, 3 shutouts already, and boy oh boy, the folks are talking about it in the chat room. Eric Comrie was the reason that the Jets had a chance to win this game because of another excellent start between the pipes.
Yeah, phenomenal job by him. Ken, I'm just going to back up to one of the comments you were talking about, the zone time that the Jets had. Interesting conversation. Like I said, when we're doing the Hockey Night broadcast or the national broadcast like we do, we get to spend some time talking with the coaches beforehand. Talked with Barry Trotz, and he had an interesting comment and it's funny how often you hear this from coaches, but all these coaches are all in on analytics, right? But you can tell there's a lot of things that coaches behind the scenes think that the analytics community get wrong. And one of the things that that the Islanders, consistently, ever since he showed up, I think how to go, Ken, you may remember this stat. The Islanders were the second worst defensive team in the league before Barry Trotz got there. And then Barry Trotz the next year, the first year that he had his effect on that team, I think they were the second best defensive team in the league. And I think have been top 3 ever since. I believe that's the case. I'm not 100% sure on that. But apparently he gets battered quite a bit by the analytics community about the amount of time that they spend in their own zone. And he'd said they have no problem at all playing in their own zone, and they actually take a look at it as a strength of theirs about how they can allow, they can be in their own zone and just never let the puck kind of get to those dangerous areas. So to them, yes, and everyone should know and buy in. He said it's not a great thing to do it all the time. Clearly, you're not scoring if you're in your own end, and that's the overarching theme, that the analytics community is talking about when they see that. But, taking into account that, and of course, you'll take into account the high danger shots and all those different kind of things, Corsi, all those different kind of things. But the New York Islanders are a team that are unbelievably comfortable in their own skin, in their own zone. And that is something that I just thought was interesting to talk about them tonight, because you're right, the Jets did get a lot of that zone time. I don't know how often, though, I was watching. One of the things that stood out to me about this New York Islanders team, Ken, was how calm they seemed. I mean, I don't know if you could see it from up where you were. I'm down in the Zamboni area, so I can kind of see them. I had them in that end on the glass a couple of times. But just the entire game, the calmness, the poise of that team, it's no fluke. This is a team that's gone as deep as they have in the playoffs the last couple of years.
Yeah, it's impressive. And just quickly on the high dangers tonight, according to Natural Stat Trick, 15-6 for the Islanders and the high dangers at 5-on-5. So despite all of that zone time for the Jets, they didn't have a ton of clean looks. And the other the problem with the clean looks was that they didn't always get all of the shots. Wheeler had a great chance. I think Svechnikov had a good one. But I mean, again, I don't care about who cares. Paul Maurice even referenced it. The Islanders were worst in zone time allowed at somewhere like 7 minutes, but they just don't give up very much. Yeah. So I have absolutely no problem with that. I mean, Jeff Kabilas mentioned that you used the buffet line in your opening about Brock Nelson, which I loved, and so did Jeff. Great job on that one for sure. And there too, let's go to that quickly. I mean, a lot of folks were wondering, we were debating upstairs on press row, and also while we were waiting for Paul Maurice. On the first one, it was a sort-out issue. I think what happened was the Jets got caught with 3 guys back behind the goal line. Pionk tried to go to the front of the net. He was a bit late. And because Lowry was the first forward back, Mark Scheifele was in the frame towards Anders Lee. But in that situation, it's not really his man either, and it just was just one of those sort-out issues that the Jets had some trouble with. And then on the second goal, some folks were looking at that play and thinking, well, Josh Morrissey didn't make the right read. Well, that's not actually true. He did make the right read, but the forward help wasn't there because of the neutral zone turnover that started that play. And when Kyle Palmieri chips it past him to the open space, it cleared out the lane for Nelson to go wide and get that shot on Comrie to the far post. Very similar to a Kyle Connor special down that wall. So like I said, I know for some folks at home were saying, oh, Morrissey can't do that. Well, no, the Jets are trying to be more aggressive at the line. He made the right read, but the opponent just made a little bit of a better play in that scenario. So those were the breakdowns on the goals allowed. I mean, excellent. There were a bunch of excellent saves Comrie made, a couple on Barzell. Yes, he got fortunate to a degree. This is the classic where the goalie will say, all I gave him was the post, and the shooter would say, I beat the goalie, but he was helped by the post. But man, oh man, a couple of great saves by Comrie to keep the game within reach. Offensively, the Jets didn't generate what we had seen the last couple of nights.
Wow, God.
What do you expect? I mean, I'm just saying. I mean, that the facts are they didn't produce enough offense. I mean, the shots on goal were at a reasonable level, but the quality of chances were weighted quite heavily in favor of the Islanders in this one. But also, let's not forget, I mean, for the folks that are going wild, Jets are playing back-to-back. The Islanders were in Winnipeg resting and watching. That's the way it goes. I think the Jets have, 11 back-to-backs this year? 9 or 11, one or the other one. And that was the first. I don't think the Jets played poorly, but they ran into a good team, and that good team was trying to get some good vibes going. They were feeling good about how they, were able to beat the Montreal Canadiens earlier this week, and they look like they're rounding into playoff form. That was vintage New York Islanders. I wouldn't say the Jets had no answer, because, again, they were able to have some successful entries, but, man, oh, man, the Islanders are on the forecheck, and then in the neutral zone, they're stifling, and then in the D zone, if you happen to get them to the outside, there's always a safety valve there. There isn't an open lane, and if you get it to a spot with a nice pass, then there's somebody there to block the shot, right? I think someone said 19 blocks. Yeah, 19 blocks. That's just a team that has an incredible will to win, and Barry Trotz has instilled that with the Islanders culture. It is impressive. We saw an example again of the identity line, their fourth line. I mean, the Jets are looking for a fourth line. Yes, 11-7, and they didn't play that fourth line very much today, obviously. But it's a good example of why you need one, and you need them to do something, specific. And then for them, that specific role is to create chaos on the forecheck. And a lot of the debate on Twitter today. If the Islanders are called for interference on a standard that is sometimes thrown down, does it look differently to them? But they're a very disciplined team. They don't take a lot of penalties. And, again, if you get away with it, why wouldn't you play that way, right? Then that's smart hockey, as long as you're not getting called on it every single time, right? You have to tip or stick taps on that front.
Yeah, no, I didn't have any issue with the reffing, and I'll always say this, and we got into this last year. I don't like to get into the reffing, but I thought it went both ways. There was one point, I can't remember who it did, but one of the Islanders players was skating up ice, and a Jets player from behind him full out cross-checked him on in the back.
Dubois.
Right down to this. It was Dubois, and that wasn't a call. And for a second, I was thinking, boy, they let that go in a time when they're cracking down on cross-checking from behind, and I get that it's not in front of the net, and that's supposed to target the front of the net, so maybe that's the case. But I didn't have any issue with the reffing tonight. I know the comment was made earlier on. I don't see that being a huge difference maker in the game here tonight.
No.
Ken, it's interesting, this Isles team. The scary part about this is, talking to Barry Trotz before the game, he says they're nowhere near the kind of game that he wants them to play,
right,
or expect them to play, which is understandable, right?
Sure.
It's the first 10 games of the year. No one expects it to do that. And if you are at this stage, you're peaking far too early. But we heard the Jets talk about it time and time again. That was a playoff style kind of game. That's the kind of game that wins you playoff games. And the Islanders are kind of doing that already, even though this is the unbuttoned, unzipped version of the Islanders. They've got a long way to go to tighten things up, and they look that good in the process. But I just thought, I want to give a shout out to Barry Trotz for just I went and watched their morning skate today, Ken, and just how disciplined they are. It's kind of like the Army without people barking stuff out. It's kind of like the Army and how people respond in the Army to drill sergeants, except there's no drill sergeant there. They're just their own drill sergeant. I just could not believe how focused they were and how smoothly everything ran. It's just a team that Barry Trotz does a phenomenal job. And I'm going to go quickly and tell this because Barry Trotz, people have mentioned that Barry Trotz started out with the Dauphin Kings. A story we had queued up tonight that we weren't able to get to, queued up because Barry Trotz kind of brought it up and talked about it. But he kind of got his start first with the Kings, but as an assistant coach, I think before the Kings with the University of Manitoba Bisons, and then came back to the University of Manitoba Bisons. He had a phenomenal story about all those legendary coaches that he coached against back in those days, Willie Desjardins being one of them, a bunch of names, I'm not going to remember all of them. He had said that because a lot of people take a look at it and say, hey, what a success story. The guy came out of the CIS, out of the University of Manitoba Bisons, to become one of the best, if not the best coaches in the NHL. And he'd said, to me, it was no surprise. He said that group of coaches in the CIS out of Western Canada, he believes are the coaches that define the style of play that Western Canadian hockey is known for. And he said one of the things that he always found was amazing is he went in and he was talking with the head coach of the Golden Bears, went into his office.
Claire Drake.
Yes, went into Claire Drake's office and was speaking with him, and was kind of fascinated by a lot of the stuff that Claire Drake did and asked him a couple questions. And Claire Drake told him everything. And Trotz said, my instinct was to go into that room, and you're a coach and you think you've got something and you guard it. That is what they do at the NHL level. We've heard Paul Maurice talk about it before. That's why he'll be like, I can't tell you too much. Barry Trotz said at that time in the 80s, that did not exist in the Western Division of university hockey. All those coaches shared everything they knew because the greater goal was, one, to make everybody good, because the better your competition was, the higher level it would drive you to. But they understood that they were the architects of the brand of hockey that was going to be played in Western Canada. So give all those coaches credit, including Barry Trotz. They built what we know of the Western Hockey League style play, the grit that Western Canada hockey is known for. They're the guys who built that. And Barry Trotz, who again I believe is the best coach in the NHL. I think there's just been too many examples of him on, like John Cooper. I know that'll be the argument. John Cooper is going to be the head coach at the Olympics. Barry Trotz is on that coaching staff, and John Cooper's team has knocked off Barry Trotz's team in the conference finals for 2 straight years on their way to winning those Stanley Cups. But I take a look at the fact that Trotz is a Stanley Cup winner. He's gone to 3 different teams. The turnaround that he had with the New York Islanders, and all he did with the Nashville Predators for all those years, the teams that he's had, I think that he is, in my opinion, hands down the best coach in the NHL. And all those Western Canadian university coaches have their thumbprints all over him. He's got them to thank for the kind of coach he is today. I just thought that was a really, really interesting story.
Hang on, let's stay on that point for 1 second. I mean, we didn't really dig into it the other day. I loved how Paul Maurice openly discussed some of these issues with Heinz Ehlers, right? I mean, I thought that was excellent.
Yes.
And we've discussed this a little bit in the past too, whether it was, Paul Maurice talking about Travis Green or Dallas Aikens, guys who he's either coached with or had as players on his teams before, in Travis's case when he was in Toronto. The player development side, I think the NHL Coaches Association is doing a nice job of trying to expand that. It's not just you call, for Paul Maurice, it's not just you call your buddy Pete DeBoer when you need help. You can feel comfortable calling around the league to discuss certain things. And I think that is an incredibly smart thing to do. I think you're always trying to learn if you're a coach. There's things you can learn from other people. Obviously, there's some systemic things you can't necessarily bring into your own team depending on personnel and things like that. But I love the fact that he spent time, and not just helping Ehlers with some of the suggestions he was making for what they should be doing for Denmark playing on the NHL-sized ice, but Maurice was looking for ideas from Ehlers as well, and they have that little bit of a bond because Maurice's time with Team Europe at the World Cup was kind of in that underdog role, similar to what Denmark is going to be like at the Olympic Games. So I think that's super important. Again, there's not a lot of time for personal development on the coaching side in season because of how busy things are, but I think they are doing a better job of that. I think a lot of it has been done online. Usually at the draft, there's, the NHL coaches get together quite a bit on the Wednesday and sometimes on the Thursday. But I think I love to see that, and I love to see people picking other people's brains for ideas and for the buy-in. I mean, Sean, every team says the same thing. They want a buy-in. Well, Barry Trotz, his teams, they always have the buy-in. And when you have the buy-in, you can take care of the rest of the system stuff you can take care of, as long as you have the buy-in, and that is something that is so impressive. And everything that you said about Trotz is true. I think John Cooper is an exceptional coach also. But for Trotz, he also got the Washington Capitals over the hump, which was a team that was looked at as, to a degree in the playoffs, they were chronic underachievers to a certain degree. Again, they often ran into very good teams, but he helped push them over the hump. And now he's trying to do that with the New York Islanders after getting them to the conference final 2 years in a row.
Roscoe calling us out here. Kenny and Renny missed the most significant issue with the Jets. They're not built for the playoffs. They're soft. Well, hey, hold on a second. Roscoe, it's an hour-long show. We're only 20 minutes in. We're going to get there. I mean,
I'd say soft is a little aggressive. I'm not willing to go there yet. If Roscoe is, that's his prerogative. I would not call. I mean, are the Jets built like the Islanders? Not yet, but I would say let's take it a little bit easy on that. It's easy to throw things around, but I'm not. That's not a term I'm going to be using when it comes to discussing how the Jets play currently. I mean, if they can't, if that becomes an issue for them, we'll be happy to discuss it. But I don't think the Jets had any trouble getting into any battles today. That was not an issue for them. They were physical enough. Adam Lowry answered the bell. There were plenty of hits in the game. Lowry smoked Brock Nelson. I don't think that the Islanders ran the Jets out of the rink, not even close. So I don't think that assessment is accurate or a fair one currently.
Yeah, I'm gonna say that Roscoe Picotrain had the wrong word here when he said soft. Maybe he didn't mean that when he was calling us out so blatantly, Ken. I think I kind of understand what he may be getting at here, or maybe there's a part of me that feels there's a similar vein to talk about here. Someone had said, the New York Islanders are like the version of what the Jets need to be. I'll say this in Roscoe, in concern to what Roscoe Picotrain said. I don't think the Jets are built to be a team like the New York Islanders. Now, you could ask them to play that style, but what you know of Nick Ehlers and Kyle Connor and players like that, they would not be that under that system. I mean, Matthew Barzal came into the league as 19-year-old, 20-year-old, Ken, maybe a 20-year-old in his rookie year, the same year the year before Austin Matthews. It's around that time. Comes into the league and is a point-per-game player as a rookie. He gets 84 points in 82 games or something like that. He's never been back there since. And he's never been back there. And I had a conversation with Barry Trotz about it, about the idea that he wants to fast-track Matt Barzal to the Steve Yzerman realization,
sure.
Right? Steve Yzerman puts up 130 points, and he does that for the first part of his career. And then at some point, he realizes what he needs to do to win, and that's not do that and be that player that kind of helps you win and let, other players, the Fedorovs of that time, do that for your team. But there's a greater cause for star players like that. And Barry Trotz wanted to put Matt Barzal on the fast track to that. And I think what we saw from Matt Barzal in the playoffs the last couple of years, Ken, you and I had a ton of conversations about this during the playoffs last year. We're seeing the effects of Matthew Barzal being that kind of player. But so to Roscoe Picotrain's idea that the Jets are too soft, maybe that's what he means by that. I don't think you can call, Dylan soft or Lowry soft, and the Jets didn't get run around the rink and they didn't look weak. They look like they're in that game. But the idea that the Winnipeg Jets should be how the New York Islanders play, I mean, maybe you can ask them to play that, but you can throw away all the idea of having, 2 30-goal scorers on this team. Just look at the stats of the New York Islanders. I mean, 9 games, and Matt Barzal has 5 points, right? Before he absolutely took off and with 4 goals in his last game, Brock Nelson wasn't putting up a lot of points either. This is not a team that scores a lot of goals. And if you're a Winnipeg Jets fan and you're excited by the stuff that Nick Ehlers does and you're excited by the stuff that Kyle Connor does, that's not going to happen if you're switching right to that kind of hockey. Now, the question becomes, Ken, does it mean that if you can't switch to that kind of hockey, you're not going to be a Stanley Cup champion? And the answer to that very well may be yes. I just think the Winnipeg Jets should be shooting more for a Tampa Bay Lightning style model where you can be what the Winnipeg Jets are, but when you need to, you can switch to being a little bit what the New York Islanders are. And in that series against the New York Islanders, we saw numerous cases where the Tampa Bay Lightning were able to score their way to victories, but when they needed to, Game 7 of the deciding game of that series, they're able to win that game 1-0. Agree or disagree with that assessment?
Well, I mean, Roscoe, the Jets are not, it's not 2015 for the Jets when they were having a ton of hits against Anaheim. But guess what? They got swept right out of the building. Who cares if you are running a team out of the building if you don't have any talent? I mean, you're not going to win with no skill. So, and one other thing, you can use whatever word that you want, but I'm not using the word soft to describe a player. That's the equivalent of a swear word, and you're saying things that are just not necessary.
Hey, Does he deserve a wake up, Ken?
No,
you haven't
no,
had a
it's
wake up
fine.
yet
No,
this
no,
season.
no, no,
Come
no.
on,
Roscoe's
Ken.
got some fine
Hand 'em
takes,
out.
but I'm
Hand
just
'em
not.
out, Ken.
No, I just don't appreciate. I don't.
You are
We're not here
far
for
too
name
concerned
calling.
with
That's
your
all I'm
wake-ups.
saying. You can say whatever you want, but that's not a road that we're going to be going. The Jets have enough players that are tough, team tough on the puck. Are they going to run you out of the rink? No, that's not the way that they're built. It's up to them to show if they can win with skill. I mean, they have plenty of skill. There's been lots of Stanley Cup champions that have had a lot of skill on them. It's not like you're only going to have teams that grind you down and make it to the Stanley Cup final or win. That's not how it works. There's lots of teams that have been skilled. The Jets are not afraid. They don't turn away from hits. They don't get run out of the building. Are they built to run you out of the building like a team like St. Louis a couple years ago? No, they're not. But let's see how they play down the stretch. And the game is changing. Let's see how they can manage. Again, you're going to run into teams like the New York Islanders, so you're going to have to be able to play that style. And yeah, sure, Justin, the Jets dominated. They had Dustin Byfuglien that year, so they were a little bit more physical. But the reason why the Jets went deep in the playoffs wasn't because they ran teams out of the rink. It was because of their skill and that they had some guys that played a physical game, of course. And in terms of Tampa had some grit, but Braden Point got the job done, and he's an incredibly skilled player. Kucherov, he has an element where he has a little bit of physical nature, but he's one of the more skilled players in the NHL. I mean, Pat Maroon, he's won 3 cups in a row, right on, but Pat Maroon's on the 4th line. Could the Jets use a Pat Maroon on the 4th line? Maybe, if they can find one for $1 million or at the league minimum.
If they use it.
Right, but
Yeah.
I mean, even you want to look at the Yanni Gourde line. That line had lots of skill. I mean, Blake Coleman is a feisty player, but it's not like he's a 30-goal guy. I mean, Barclay Goodrow, hardworking guy.
Yeah.
That line was very good. That line was very good for them and helped them win. But without their skilled players, Tampa doesn't win the cup. And the same goes for Washington.
Braden Point and Kucherov are two, they're not big guys, right? But they play
hard
enough in the playoffs. I mean, no one is calling Braden Point soft.
Exactly.
Because of his size, or say they need to have like a monster in there. I mean, I think people think the idea, and there's truth to it, right? Because the change for the Tampa Bay Lightning is they kind of beef things up on the back end and they add that Patrick Maroon element. I'd say it's more along the lines of the Coleman and Goodrow element that really kind of put things over the top for them there. But I mean, we're not talking about Dustin Byfuglien size players here. We're talking about players who have skill but can play with a little bit of grit. I think those are things that are achievable. That's why I say I point more towards the Tampa Bay Lightning model than I would the New York Rangers model. I just don't think the Jets are built to play the kind of hockey like this here, and I think that you'd lose a lot of the players on the Winnipeg Jets. And what I mean by that, I think you'd lose interest from a lot of those players if you ask them to play what's happening here. Maybe Anthony Beauvillier and Matt Barzal are the two players on this Islanders team that really are the guys that you'd really have to worry about losing potentially, because these are guys who love to play with skill. You saw Barzal on that the breakaway. He just looked like he was in heaven heading down there. But for the most part, this is a team. Anders Lee, Brock Nelson, these are guys who are built to play hard-nosed, grinding hockey. Cody or Cizikas, Clutterbuck, I mean, up and down the lineup, there's guys who can grind on that team and are built for that and to play that game mainly. Jets just aren't built like that. But anyways, Ken, let's move on.
Let's go. Let's move on.
Let's move on. I was just going to say this. If you're not going to start handing up wake-ups, I'm going to have to do it for you. And Roscoe Pico Train, I know can take it. So because he used the word soft, which we don't think is appropriate, and he's doing it again here, soft, and because he called you
put
and
him in a timeout.
on our own show, no timeout. Let's just tell Roscoe Pico Train.
Enjoy your Saturday night. Enjoy your Saturday night.
He's not going anywhere. He's welcome to stick around the whole time.
You should.
Someone
yes.
talked about it about the Jets getting to the middle. I thought that was their biggest problem tonight. My buddy Dwight, who again coach of the AAA Eastman team, was in the stands tonight, a little bit off of where I always go talk to him before the game. That's what he thought the problem was. He talked about a couple times an issue specifically where Mark Scheifele cut into the middle with the puck. Is in the middle, and rather than dropping the shoulder and just grinding it to the front of the net, he passed it off to the boards on the outside. He had a lot of issue with that. What were you seeing from the Jets as far as getting to the dirty areas tonight?
I think there were several opportunities where they were able to get there. Here's the problem for the Jets that they had tonight. The chances that when they went there and were able to get there, their shot either went wide or it was into the pillows. So it's not that they had zero chances from there. They just weren't able to get enough of them. And when you don't bury the ones that you have, as the chances we mentioned, Wheeler in front, taking advantage of the kind of the bouncing puck, and then Scheifele firing. I mean, Maurice said 99 times out of 100, that's in, right? I mean, so you miss the net on a 99% effect. I mean, it's a tie game at that situation if he doesn't miss the net. And there again, he's just coming back from COVID. I mean, if he has played all 11 games, does he bury it? I mean, possibly. But, we're not having horseshoes here, or close is not going to count in this situation. But I don't think they were bereft of great chances. They just didn't have enough of them. And, when they had them, they were not able to bury them. And on the flip side, Islanders, opportunistic. That's their style. So I don't think it's a cause for concern. But it's an area they got to improve on. I mean, they know that. We know that. They know that. The coaching staff knows that. They'll go through their video, and they'll get themselves another tough test. A lot of folks have been, again, I don't think we need to spend a lot of time dissecting. I think we've got enough of the dissection done. I don't think there's much more to go at it from this game. They're just, the Jets were not quite good enough. I don't think they were terrible, but they weren't good enough to beat a playoff-hardened team on the back end of a back-to-back. And here's the other part. For the folks, I think maybe Phyllis had mentioned, if the Jets aren't going to be in a back-to-back, maybe it's a different situation. Well, guess what? I've got news for everybody. If you haven't looked at the schedule, the next time the Jets play the Islanders, it's on the back end of a back-to-back after playing New Jersey. So travel won't be an issue, but they'll be facing the exact same situation and scenario the next time these two teams get together for the second and final meeting. So I know that Wheeler hit the crossbar. So anyways, there's two great chances there.
I'll be honest, I hate that argument. I hate but we had chances and we didn't bury them. I hate that argument.
Why? But then it's for the people that are saying there were no chances, Sean. The chances were in the area.
For sure. Okay, so
it's a tie game if either one of those goes in.
Create any chances, yes. But I just, Paul Maurice will come out and do that quite often. He'll be
no, I don't care what he was saying. I'm saying that's what I saw.
Sure, and I'm not calling you out. I'm just saying we hear that all the time.
Here we go. This is there.
Jets have no
James,
chance
there you go. That's it.
Yeah, and that's true. That's true. I know Scheifele missed the net, and I know if he buries it there, it's a different game. But there's plenty of times that the Islanders were down and having chances, and if they have a guy bury something there, it's a different game as well, right? Like, chances go both ways. I hate it. To me, it's just a game where you're taking all the stuff that you did and you're focusing on the positives and you're ignoring the negatives. That's all that is to me for the most part. And we know that Paul Maurice is that kind of coach. Paul Maurice is the guy who likes to focus on the positives, eschew away the negatives. And I just I mean, they got beat tonight. There's no doubt in my mind, Ken. Like, if I'm asking you who's the better team tonight, who's the better team?
Sorry, Roscoe, you should check your scouting reports, actually, when it comes to the style of game that Sean and I played. So try to ask around about that one and see what happens. Neither one of us had great hands.
To wake up.
Yeah.
I had phenomenal hands. Ken, I had 132 points in 33 games.
Well, there you go.
When I was 15 years old, led Eastman in scoring. I had
there
hands.
You go.
Once upon a time, they got pretty hard pretty quick at one point. So, they got hard. There you go. Yeah,
Roscoe. They got hard on people's foreheads, buddy. They got hard on people's foreheads.
There was that element. That was it.
I did not like fighting. Sean did. There you go. There's the scouting report.
Yeah. Hey, so I want to talk about this. This is interesting. We were talking in the office earlier on, and having a conversation about, who's the first, second, and third line here, right? And the guys come into town, and I'm talking with Greg Mill, and I'm talking with Rick Ball. And we like to say that the Jets, have taken and put Wheeler and Scheifele on the third line. The numbers belie that. And can I walk away from this game and I think, the idea that there's any kind of consideration that Mark Scheifele and Blake Wheeler are anything but the top line on this team, I think that died tonight. What do you think?
I mean, the Jets have three good lines. I don't care what the numbers are, but we know the ice time has been favoring Scheifele's line for a long time. I mean, in the games that they didn't, it was when they were coming back from COVID. I mean, Mark Scheifele was 22-40 last night. What is he tonight? Tonight, before he got hurt, still got 19-33.
He's just under 20. Wheeler leads forwards in ice time tonight.
Yeah, and I mean, what I would say
would have been right there and ahead of him if he wouldn't have got injured. Yeah.
What I would say today, the Dubois line has been fantastic. They weren't as effective today, and I think they had a few good shifts, but they didn't generate the same type of opportunities. Ehlers didn't generate the same type of opportunities. That's not to say that they can't generate those opportunities against tough teams. I think they will. This was just a night that it wasn't going great for them. In terms of the numbering of the lines, Paul Maurice has leaned on all three of the lines at various points. Tonight he was leaning more on Wheeler's line and Scheifele's because I think he felt that they were able to get some matchups. He used them against the third line. He used them against the fourth line.
Against the fourth line like crazy.
Used them against Barzell at times. I mean, I just think that tonight there weren't enough of the, in the top 9, there weren't enough guys that had their A legs. So he was looking for answers and just wasn't able to find enough in terms of the offense. Thomas, yes, Scheifele was pinned against the boards. He tried to get out of the way of Adam Pelech right by the Nissan sign along the hash marks. It looked like he kind of jammed his, what is it, a quad maybe. It looked like maybe a Charlie horse kind of situation. He went to the bench. He tried to get his leg loose. He came out during the TV timeout. He stretched it out. He went for a shift or two, but just had no power in his leg. He didn't have the same push that was required, and eventually he just went down the tunnel. And then shortly thereafter, Paul Stastny also went down the tunnel with a foot injury, I believe, after getting hit by a shot. Phyllis Adam Lowry, 16:57 on 22 shifts, but part of that was because he had a 5-minute major.
Right. Yeah.
In terms of Jeff, I don't know if it was a full-on knee from Pelech. I mean, it's possible that his knee made contact with his quad on the play, but it was more because Scheifele was trying to get out of the way and then he pinned him. So I don't think it was a dirty play. I think Scheifele was trying to get out of the way, and it's one of those things where it's just kind of bad luck on the play. And then we'll see what happens because, I mean, as Paul Maurice mentioned, there'll be a lot of ice packs happening. And, see what happens in terms of the swelling. And it's going to be obviously a bruise for Scheifele, and then see how it feels on Monday when the Jets are back on the ice. And I know we said it on the air on our sportsnet.ca hit, Sean, but we're expecting Connor Hellebuck to be on the ice on Monday and to start against the St. Louis Blues on Tuesday, provided there's no setbacks of any kind. We understand he's feeling better, and but now he's been off the ice for a week, so he's going to need for sure a practice to get under his belt. Paul Maurice said he's not going to look for spots to hide Eric Comrie in his next starts, but I think that we're going to see Connor Hellebuck in that vintage matchup with Jordan Binnington, which would be great to see.
So, Ken, I'm just going to go back to the original question on the first line. Here's why I
didn't mean to skate around it. I just think that
that's okay.
I don't think that he's only leaning on them. I think he's got 3 really good lines that he can use on a night where people are feeling, whoever's feeling best is going to play the most, in my opinion. But yes, we know that in a game where they were chasing and on a night where Svechnikov was not as noticeable as the night before, Paul Maurice was not afraid to put Kyle Connor back with Blake Wheeler and Mark Scheifele. He also tried Ehlers there when Adam Lowry was in the box. So was he going back to the default position? Well, he did to a degree, but I don't think it's because he's going to just stick those 3 back together and totally forget about everything that Connor and Dubois have done together during the stretch of games either.
No, and I don't think that, but I think what tonight shows us is that in Paul Maurice's mind, Blake Wheeler and Mark Scheifele together, whoever they are with, are in his mind, that's the number 1 line on this team. And I think you just talked about it. You just said it, that the idea of when Lowry went in the box, he was taking players from other lines, and the straws that stir the drink on the other lines, Nick Ehlers and Kyle Connor, and trying that. I mean, it was efforts to boost those 2 players and get them going. It was clear to me in that game that Paul Maurice felt the best chance the Winnipeg Jets had to get in that game, had to get back into that game, came from those 2 players. That was his belief. Now, Greg Millen,
those 2 guys had the best chances in the game tonight.
They also had the most ice time. I mean, here's the deal. We're coming off a game in which Andrew Kopp was an absolute different maker. And again, it's the Blackhawks. Take that with a grain of salt. And I'm almost harming my argument, to be honest with you, by bringing this up, because I just thought that they were not a challenge. Again, I'm trying to at the same time here bring up the ice time.
18:31 for Kopp.
Right. If we're talking about the effect of a back-to-back, Mark Scheifele played 22:40 in the last game. Blake Wheeler played 18 minutes. I mean, these guys were some of the guys who play. I mean, I know Kopp played 19 and Kyle Connor played 18:53, but those were the guys last game that kind of got things done. Kyle Connor and Andrew Kopp, and they're the guys who've been getting things done recently. And I guess I was thinking the Jets run into their stiffest test of the season. And instead of going to the two guys or the three guys, if you want to throw Dubois in there, or four guys, Ehlers, instead of kind of going to those guys to be the push to try and get you back into the most difficult game that you've played so far this season, they go back to Wheeler and Scheifele. And I'm going to tell you why I think he made that decision. I do think that because this is a big, heavy hockey team, he thought 6'3" Mark Scheifele, 6'5", Blake Wheeler, 6'5", Adam Lowry were the most likely guys to be able to get it done in a grind game like this. I think that. But I do wonder too, if you're the Winnipeg Jets and you've been playing this is who we are. We're the Winnipeg Jets. We've gone 10 games. This is how we've succeeded. This is who we are as a team. This is our identity. I think you kind of went away from your identity to try and win a game tonight that was close but in question. Do you understand what I'm saying?
I do, but I mean, Dubois had 1943, Sean, so it's not like he dismissed that line completely. They're within a minute or two in total ice time. So, and Kopp is also 1831, that's just under 19. I mean, I don't think he just said, hey, you two guys go out and win the game. He did lean on them.
That the opportunities that were created,
he leaned on the stretch.
Yeah.
He leaned on them a little bit down the stretch, but I think that's because that other line wasn't going quite as well. And Sean, let's not forget, he's trying to get that line going. The Scheifele and Wheeler have each missed 5 games. They're trying to get them back up to speed. We understand that Wheeler said he felt good in the morning, but these guys are still playing catch up. So
sure, but again, this is my issue. Why are you breaking up? And I'm not entirely breaking up, but if you're taking Kyle Connor off a line that's working for him, I thought Svechnikov had a great game tonight. I thought that they were going fairly well and they were creating chances. I thought that the Kopp's line looked dangerous at points. And we've had this before, Ken. We had this conversation. How often were lines broken up in the past to get Nick Ehlers going, right? Or when Patrick Laine was here. When Patrick Laine went through that stretch where he could not score for how long? Where was them breaking up parts of the other parts of that were working for the team to get Patrick Laine going? And that's what I'm saying. That's the point. Is like, yeah. So Mark Scheifele and Blake Wheeler aren't going right now. Why in a winnable game are you breaking stuff up on other sides? And they didn't entirely break them up because they went back to that. So I'm overselling it here. But the idea of taking guys off other lines to get that line going, that's the one thing that I'm saying. Why are we not saying, Kyle, Dubois, Svechnikov, Connor, you've been doing it so far. Go out and win that game. Here's extra opportunity to go out and win that game. Why is the game plan to get that line going rather than to take what you've leaned on so far and give them another chance to pull one out for you?
Yeah, Sean, for me, Lowry was out sitting for 5 minutes plus, so that caused some of the lines to go, and then Stastny getting hurt late. I mean, yes, obviously Scheifele got hurt also. I don't think it was as much of a reliance deal. I mean, I'm not saying he pulled all the right buttons as a coach tonight, and I don't think that, I don't know. I don't think this was a big issue. Could they have had a couple more shifts for that other line or for the other two lines? Personally, I don't think that the Ehlers Kopp Stastny line was rolling as much as they were the other night. So maybe he was looking for someone else. Maybe those guys, he felt they were a little bit taxed from the night before, I guess. That's my only counter. I'm not saying you're wrong, but I'm also not saying that it was over. I don't think that after one game it suggests reliance. It opens the door to him being criticized for just keeping them together, but I'm not going as far to say that that's definitely the way that it's going to turn. I just think that Paul Maurice was looking for an offensive spark. He felt in the contest that the two of the better scoring chances were from Scheifele and Wheeler, and maybe he had a feeling that they were going to get going. So. But at the same time, he didn't sit them down for long stretches of time. I mean, those other guys played a lot. They just weren't. No one was able to get much going. So,
yeah,
I think we're nitpicking. My point is, I think we're nitpicking in that situation.
Oh, totally.
And that's okay. I mean, that's part of our job.
Totally. I was just about to say I'm playing the devil's advocate here. I mean, the simple answer to this may be, for if you're Paul Maurice, Mark Scheifele and Blake Wheeler are guys that you have gone to in the past in situations like this, and they've paid dividends, right? Like, guys will go back and give opportunities to guys who've done this in the past. It's in the DNA of these two players to have come up in big situations for this team in the past. And so if you're a coach, that's what you go with. I mean, it's probably as simple as that, right? Again, it's, like you said, it's our job to explore this. I'm pushing and I'm probing in areas like this to do exactly that.
And you're right, but if Justin and Sean, to a degree, I mean, this is what we know. The Jets have been great through the 10 games, or great would be maybe overstating it, but missing Scheifele and Wheeler for a 5-game stretch, they did a nice job getting to 6-2-2. If the Jets want to get to where they want to go, they need Mark Scheifele and Blake Wheeler contributing offensively as well as defensively. We know Blake Wheeler, what he had to say this morning about the defensive style of play and what they were able to get accomplished on those fronts. Those things are accurate, but Mark Scheifele is their number one center. I mean, Blake and Mark have been drivers from this team. They've had other guys step up in their absence, but in order for the Jets to be successful over the course of 82 games, they need all three lines going. So they're going to need to get those guys feeling good about their offensive game. I mean, are there some risks to trying to do that in a game that's either 1-0 or 2-0 a minute into the third? Sure, but these are guys that have produced over long stretches of time. So I think it's natural to lean on those type of guys, especially when you're trying to get them back into a full rhythm.
Where do you want to go, Ken? Well, you know what? People are talking about it earlier, and we've moved away from it, but we got to talk about Eric Comrie and what he's doing here. Yeah, I thought, he was phenomenal against tonight, gave the Jets a chance to win this game. What did you see?
Yeah, he was great. Again, he's doing a nice job of making the routine saves, but he's also making the difficult save look routine, which is a sign of a goaltender that is starting to feel comfortable with his game. I think he's doing a nice job of being aggressive. He's doing a nice job of challenging shooters, and again, not coming way out of the paint, but just a little bit in terms of his technical play. It's been sound, and it's allowed him to really square up. His rebound control has been very good, and when he's kicked out his rebounds, it's to areas by design. So to me, that is an impressive quality as well. He looks calm and comfortable, and back to the conversation I was having with Trevor Kidd in the pregame show, he looks like a guy who's no longer looking over his shoulder in terms of his opportunities. He knows that he needs to perform and that it's not a long leash, but he's not looking over his shoulder constantly wondering who he needs to leapfrog on the depth chart. He feels confident in where he's at and knows he needs to continue to work at it in order to sustain that. But he's been very good. We should also talk about, we often like to talk about Manitobans. Great week for Manitobans. Seth Jarvis scoring his first goal with the Carolina Hurricanes, and Joel Hofer, the Manitoban who helped Team Canada win a gold medal at the World Junior, picked up his first win with the St. Louis Blues earlier this week as well. But yeah, Comrie's been very solid. We know what the players around him have been saying about him. But Josh Morrissey was quite blunt today in saying he's had success at every level, so we're not surprised. I know a lot of fans might be surprised, but the players aren't surprised. And I think it was important that not just the players that knew him, I said it the other day, when Brendan Dillon and Nate Schmidt are noticing the qualities of Eric Comrie immediately after being here for a couple of months, it goes to show what you've seen from Eric Comrie over the course of the early stages.
I mean, how could you not notice? We had him on the Kenny and Renny show, and you just walk away from that, and you're just like, man, oh man, he literally is the nicest guy in the world. He's absolutely phenomenal. I mean, Greg Millen had a conversation with him about what he's seeing from Comrie, and he just thinks he looks so strong in the net and is just so with it. And the kind of aggression that he plays with. I mean, he's attacking all those plays. Tonight where the Islanders were coming in, there's so many of these shots where they kind of stepped into the slot and a couple turnovers, so the camera is kind of catching the player and moving towards the net, and it was almost like that sharp action where the camera's moving this way and it looks like Comrie is coming flying out of the net because the camera's moving this way and he's coming out the challenge, and it almost looks dramatic, but he's getting out, he's playing aggressive, He's, aggression. I think often, sometimes aggression can mean that you're unconfident, right? Because you're doing too much. Connor Hellebuck's the kind of guy who says that if you're moving around too much in your net, that maybe you're not playing your best. But I think that Comrie has done a really, really good job of being aggressive at the right times, cutting down the angle at the right times. And just seems to be fighting his way. He's strong in his crease, fighting his way through, seeing the majority of the pucks. You're not seeing many of those moments where he kind of seems lost at where the puck is. How much of this do you think has to do with Wade Flaherty? Because I'm a big believer that I don't think Wade Flaherty gets anywhere near the credit he deserves for the amount of goaltenders that have become something under his tutelage. I think he, look, I don't give him all the credit for Connor Hellebuck, but Connor Hellebuck flourishes underneath him. Laurent Brossoit comes here. Andre Pavlik, I think, he kind of held him together with, bubble gum and tape and stuff like that for the longest time. And now we're taking a look at it when Eric Comrie gets here to spend some time with the Jets under the tutelage of Wade Flaherty and gets to go out and show what he's learned time and time again. I'm not betting against flats.
Wade Flaherty's done an excellent job with the goaltenders in this system. There's no doubt about that. And he also was the person who probably went to bat the heaviest for Eric Comrie in the offseason. When the Jets were looking around, knowing they would need a goaltender around the league minimum, Flaherty was confident that Comrie could do the job. And guess what? Wade Flaherty's not saying that unless he believes in him, because he knows that his opinion is valued. And if he's wrong, they got to find somebody else. So he's not just going and saying on a whim, hey, go with Eric Comrie because he's a nice person. He believed that he could do the job. He knew he would put in the work to do the job, and now he's doing the job. So, I agree. I know that there were some people hard on Wade Flaherty early going in Connor Hellebuck's career, but, they work well together, and he's done an excellent job on that front.
Yeah. I want to go back to the two goals that were scored. I know that Paul Maurice seemed to like the first one the least. I thought that was just a phenomenal play by Matt Barzal, and I think he just kind of catches. I know everyone is, kind of caught out of position there, but I think the full expectation is that Brendan Dillon is going to get that puck over to his defensive partner. Barzal, I think, who's giving up 5 inches to Brendan Dillon and, 30, 40 pounds, finds a way to kind of stop him, gets the puck moved, and then the second Jets defenseman, who I believe is Neil Pionk at that time, goes to pounce on that puck, and Barzal is holding his back against Dillon on the wall and has the wherewithal to just kind of hold the puck with one hand against the back of the net, which, Pionk goes to take the puck and move with it, and the puck just doesn't go anywhere, and then he moves and he gets out of position. I just thought that was a very quiet, underrated play by Matt Barzal in that situation. I know the Jets don't like that, and they're caught out of position, but in the NHL quite often it takes just phenomenal plays by a player to kind of create that chaos. And Barzal, I thought that was a true, honest, hard-working goal. Jets don't like it, but I thought that's the kind of goal that you create with speed and strength and chaos with something like that. And then the second one, I don't know. Ken, tell me if you agree with this. What I saw on that second goal is just, and kind of what I saw throughout the game, even before the Jets upped their risk profile. But the Jets are trying to play that press game where they're pinning you down to your zone. They're really aggressive. They're trying to hold the puck in. And to do that, I find when it doesn't work, it can be disastrous, and it can create a lot of those odd man rushes and really good opportunities. I saw a lot of that tonight. And I also think that, by the end of the second period, we were seeing there was back-to-back 2-on-1s when Kyle Connor's line was on the ice. And I saw, the Jets trying really hard to bottle the Islanders up rather than kind of laying back when the Islanders were pressing. I thought they were risky plays. They clearly, at that point, were starting to up their risk profile. That second goal, I just see that as being the Jets upping their... I don't see it as being necessarily that bad of a play by Morrissey. I see him doing kind of what the system is calling for him to do. And I'll say this, I think that system has its weaknesses, and that's one of them. When it does not work, when you're pressing to hold that puck and it does not work, it usually leads to odd man rushes and dangerous chances the other way.
Yeah, it wasn't a bad play at all. Morrissey did his job, but the problem is that because of the neutral zone turnover, you didn't have the forward support. If there's forward support on the play, then Nate Schmidt can pressure Brock Nelson, and it doesn't create the 2-on-1 where he has a little bit more of a shooting lane to barrel down the right-hand side. Morrissey makes the right read. It's just that Palmieri made a nice play to chip it past him when he came and made an aggressive play at the line. But if the F3 is in position to back check, then Schmidt can slide over and pressure Nelson. Then he probably doesn't have as much of an opportunity on the shot to get a good shot off in that scenario. But yeah, I mean, in the terms of the first one, Josh Bailey makes a nice play. I mean, Barzal, nice job down low too. But I mean, it was Bailey that got it out to Anders Lee, and they just kind of got caught in the middle. I mean, it was. You looked and all of a sudden Pionk realizes, well, Dylan's there, Adam Lowry's there, I can't be there. He gets to the front, but then he didn't find Lee. Lee was in a quiet enough position where he was just far enough away from Pionk, but also far enough away from Scheifele that neither one of them were able to cover him. And it's just a point-blank chance and opportunity right there. So, 2 goals, opportunistic, yes, but the Islanders were in the right place, and their patience to their game allowed them to create opportunities where the Jets kind of pressed on a few times, and they got burned on those situations.
Roscoe, sorry, again, lots of comments. I'm getting back through stuff. Roscoe, I don't mind you coming in and debating, even if you're going to stick on one topic and beat it to death throughout the entire show. But I'm reading here that you're going after people and
That's not
attacking
cool.
their reading comprehension and stuff like that. Enough's enough. I'm putting you in timeout. It's not necessary. It's not welcome here. If you're going to come back with it, it'll just be blocked. Okay, so come on. You're better than that. You don't need to be doing that. Ken, we have time for one last topic. Where do you want to go?
Well, let's just talk a little about St. Louis. We've discussed them a lot in terms of what kind of team they are, what we were expecting of them. What we know is that despite dealing with some COVID issues, that the Blues are really strong so far. I mean, they've done a nice job. We talked about them briefly the other night. I think Ryan O'Reilly is one of the best leaders in the NHL. He's fun to watch. He's a great player, great leader. David Perron is still getting things done with the Blues. We love the way Braden Shen plays. A guy for folks. I mean, you and I were fortunate enough to be around the Blues during their Stanley Cup season when Robert Thomas was just starting to break into the league. This is a guy that is emerging as a talent, and I think has the potential to grow into a star kind of player.
Really?
I really do. I think he's kind of one of those guys like Andrew Mangiapane, like a kind of underrated kind of guy that the more you watch him, the more you're going to enjoy. Again, maybe star is a little bit too strong a word, but I think he's going to be an excellent top 6 player, a really good producer. Pavel Bushnevich, I think that was a great addition. And Brandon Saad, for whatever reason, and it's always tough on him because he got traded for the bread man. He got traded for Panarin. And then Panarin's gone on to be like an MVP candidate. But Saad's a producer. He does a nice job. And Jordan Kyrou, nice player, Justin. Yes, good point by you there. Kyrou's a nice player as well.
Huge point. Point.
Really like the way that he plays. And but again, Robert Thomas is a guy to watch when we're coming up to the games here. Oscar Sundqvist had an incredible playoff that year, Sean. I mean, he's kind of got a bunch of injuries and hasn't really emerged the way that we maybe expected based on how he had played in that playoff series. But they're a fun team to watch. They play a heavy game. Colton Parayko is another guy who, just an exceptional talent. It'll be interesting. We haven't seen them for quite some time. I mean, we haven't seen them with Torrey Krug. We haven't seen them without Alex Pietrangelo, not in person, right? So this team is a little bit different. But it's going to be super interesting to see how the Jets stack up because I think Elliott was getting grief about it. Some of those teams were kind of similar, right? Blues and Island, or I guess he was talking about Islanders and Habs last year, but similar styles at times. I think you could make the argument that the Blues have a little bit more offensive game breakers where you're looking at an O'Reilly or you're looking at Tarasenko in his prime. But much like we've seen, Justin, again, you're right. The games against the Central, outside of the loose game, kind of freewheeling game that we saw against Chicago last night, have been highly intense games and physical games. And the Jets have played well in those style of games, whether it was Nashville, Dallas, or previously against Minnesota where they lost in overtime. So I think it'll be interesting. it'll be a great matchup. I can't wait to see it. Sean, what are your thoughts about the Blues?
Well, I think if you're one of the people in the chat room saying this was just one game, don't worry about it, back to back, all that kind of stuff, I think it's good because you get to see how the Jets respond against a team that's very capable of the exact same thing. I mean, these are the tests for I've been saying this. If you've been watching this show, you've been hearing me talk about their schedule. I was excited to get to this part of the schedule because I think this is more along the lines of when we're going to find out who the Winnipeg Jets are. And the Blues are going to be one of those teams. And if they can come out and listen, I take a look at this game tonight, and I think the Jets spent the vast majority of this game staying within their defensive structure, which kept them close in that game. And I think look, you're not going to win every game against a team like the New York Islanders or a team like the St. Louis Blues. You can see this game that we saw here tonight was a game similar to the type that we saw the New York Islanders play to beat the Tampa Bay Lightning, the eventual Stanley Cup champs, 3 times in the playoffs last season. You're not going to win every one of these games. So I think sometimes you just get to a stage where if you're the Jets, you feel like you're a Stanley Cup contender. And if you are the St. Louis Blues and you're a Stanley Cup contender, sometimes you're going to get into a game and things are going to happen. And you may not win that game, but you got to do the right things and have the patience to stay in that game to try and win it. You may not win it, but if you don't have that patience, you're definitely not going to win it, or you're definitely going to lose it. I thought the Winnipeg Jets put themselves in a situation tonight where they could have still won that game. When they started opening up their risk profile, it was going to go one or two ways. They were either going to to score and tie up that game, or it was going to go the other way, and it went the other way. I do think there was problems in that. I do think the Jets needed to get, they needed to get inside a lot more. They needed to get grittier. They needed to get tougher. They needed to stop with the idea that they were going to do these cross-ice passes that they got away with against the Chicago Blackhawks last night. And let's just add that in there, Ken, the idea that you play that style of game against the Chicago Blackhawks, who are a tire fire, and then you're expected to, yank the button, the belt as tight as you possibly can to get in and play a game against a team like that. That's a hard transition for them. So I'm not saying that the Jets, I don't think the Jets played that terrible of a game. I think there's definitely things that they needed to be better at, but I do think that for the most part, if I were Paul Maurice, I'd walk away and say, guys, even though we lost that game, we played the right way, and next time maybe we get the first goal and things turn out different. If you're the Jets and you want to try and test that theory, you're going to get to test it again right away against the St. Louis Blues. So if I'm a Jets fan, if I'm a Jets player, I'm excited to be playing that team the next game because, enough with the, 10 games against fairly weak competition in the beginning. It's time to start, pulling out the measuring stick, and that's what a game against a team like the St. Louis Blues is going to be. Before we go, Ken, I wanted to play this game. Enor Trapp, who I believe we picked up in our time that we were doing Canadians games last year, who stuck with us, and we really appreciate that. We love having you around. You always ask good questions. Let's go down this road. Now, I want to go down this road because I'm first going to tell a story that we were going to tell on the broadcast we never got to. Found it really interesting. I asked Barry Trotz about, he's one of the guys, one of the coaches on Team Canada going to the Olympics. I asked him about Barzal and the idea of these head-to-head games against a player like Mark Scheifele, who I believe is going to be on the team. But how these, I do think he's one of the lower-end guys, and, Barzal would probably be that as well. If games like this are kind of, head-to-head opportunity to kind of show, hey, I think I should be on this team ahead of that guy. And when we've asked these questions, we asked it of Scheifele, and everyone says they're proud to, to be considered for it. It would be a dream come true, but they're not thinking about it right now. I love the honesty of Barry Trotz, because Barry Trotz essentially said, bullshit. They're thinking about it. You have to, as a coach, you have to recognize that the players are thinking that. So he went out and he had conversations with Matt Barzal, with Pelech, with Pollock. He talked with all of these guys and said, listen, this is the way it is. The way it's going to be is how you play at the beginning of this year, heading into that, is going to determine whether or not you are on that team. And so game like tonight where you're going up against a guy like Mark Scheifele, these are the things that coaches are going to be considering. How does he know? Well, he's one of the coaches who's going to be considering this. And you know what? It's one of the things I love and have always loved about Barry Trotz is the idea that I don't feel like he ever massages players. I think he just goes in and he gives them his honest take and says, this is what I think. This is what I see. This is where you are. This is where you need to be. This is how I think that we can get you there. And I just think it makes it so easy for a player to kind of look in the mirror and be like, not, have a distorted image of what his game is, not be thinking too high, not be thinking low, just be like, this is where I am. And I trust this guy and he's built this plan. And all I need to do is follow that plan to get there. I just think, to the point I was making about how their practice was run earlier, I just think, and you were talking about his relationship with players and the command that he has over players. The command that he has is he's the ultimate truth teller. And he tells players how it's going to be and where they're going to get to. And people buy into it as they should. He's phenomenal like that. But let's get to
no BS, right? That's the beauty of Barry Trotz.
No BS with Barry Trotz, exactly. It's all BT, no BS with BT. So let's go down this road, because an interesting conversation behind the scenes with the Hockey Night guys is the idea that they think that Andrew Kopp, if we're talking about guys like Sean Couturier being included on Team Canada to be those guys, or Ryan O'Reilly to be the guys who can come in and kind of play that grind role for the Canadians if they need that, is Andrew Kopp playing himself into contention as being that kind of bottom six type player that the Americans could use on their team?
Absolutely. I mean, we mentioned it last night. I mean, I think that he's also, too, versatility, Swiss Army knife. If you're looking for, I mean, I think he could end up, higher in the lineup. But if you're looking for someone that can do anything, Andrew Kopp is that person for you. So at worst, he's your 13th forward, and you can plug and play him wherever you need him. I mean, even just as a penalty killer, I would have him on the team. And that he can do other things. He can play. He can play an 8-minute game. He can play an 18-minute game if you needed him to. You want to protect the lead at the Olympics? I'd feel pretty comfortable having Andrew Kopp on the ice trying to protect the lead if you're Team USA. So, yeah, I think he's going to, if he continues to play at that level, he could easily be on the team. I think Kyle Connor is not only on the team, he's on their, probably top two lines on the left side. I think Scheifele's on the team as well. It's not a lock right quite yet, but I think he's on the team. Obviously, Connor Hellebuck, I see him as being on the team, but we thought he would be the starter. So I think he still can be. I mean, it's just now it's time. He still has a couple months to get ready for the Olympics. So I still see him as being. There you go, Jack. Svech was creating some things on the.
I thought this was Svechnikov's best game. There were some times where
just didn't have for me. He didn't have the legs, Sean. He was on the puck, dogged on the puck. He didn't have the same burst he had last night, in my opinion, but he was still very effective.
I thought that he created a lot out there. Now there were times where he looked disconnected with Kyle Connor tonight. There's a couple of those occasions, and I think that's the kind of stuff that Paul Maurice looks at, and I think he's still very much up in the air on whether or not he's going to keep that line together because of that. But I thought he what I liked from him today is, even if I thought he was somewhat out of sync with his line, I liked his personal game and the confidence that he looked like he was going to try and affect that game tonight. He tried to. There was a couple times I thought he got close to doing it. It didn't work out, but I like the confidence of a player who's starting to, rather than deferring to the two phenomenal line mates that he had. In a game like that, Ken, all you need to be is that one guy who takes the puck to the net and jams it in, and now you're tied 1-1, right? And I thought that he showed a realization of that, and I thought that his game kind of matched that realization. So, yeah, I thought he played a pretty darn good game.
I like the engagement. Sorry, just to clarify, I liked his engagement level. I just didn't think he was moving as quickly, which is not a surprise. It was the first back-to-back of the year for a guy who didn't play a lot of games last year. So right. I did like he was on the puck. He was engaged in the battles in the corners. He went to the net. He had a couple of chances. Wasn't able to bury the chances he had, but he got himself into good shooting positions. And we appreciate that, Roscoe, and like I said, so to me, I just don't like the word. It's a personal attack when you use the word soft. That's a quality that it's not an endearing quality to a player, and I don't think it's fair to be tossing around liberally that word. So
I don't know. People can have their own opinion. I don't mind that.
they can. I don't agree with it. So
one thing we are never going to stand for on Kenny and Renny is people attacking each other or insulting other people in the chat room. We're not interested in that. Roscoe, I appreciate you saying this. It's a conciliatory tone we like, and you know what? I don't even mind the trolling. I don't even mind people having fun and doing that. But when it starts to get to the level of personal attacks, we're just not okay with that. It's not going to happen. I hope you can understand that, and I hope we can move on from that. And let's move on from the show. Ken, do we have tickets to?
No, we gave them away yesterday because the game is still tomorrow. So yeah.
Do you want to announce the guys who got it? Do you know?
CMAC was one, and the other was. Sorry, just give me 2 seconds. How about? I think Danny Sims is the second one. Yep. Those are the two.
Okay. Good. Okay, that's it. We're going to shut it down. Hey, everybody, we appreciate you sticking with us on a Saturday night. We know there's lots of viewing options you could have, and we're appreciative that your viewing option was Kenny and Renny here tonight. Kenny did a great job here. Chat room did a great job. We're going to be back on Tuesday for that game we've been talking about against the St. Louis Blues. I'm excited for this one. And you know what, Ken? There was just a moment tonight where I was like, man, the New York Islanders are in town. I know I should have hit this earlier on with some of the teams that came to town here and visited earlier on. But I mean, the New York Islanders are a team that we've talked about at length, you and I, especially in the playoffs last year, in the bubble the year before. I got to cover them in the bubble. And they're a team that's, you've wondered, like, how do the Jets stack up against this team, the way they play this style of hockey? And it just I had this moment, I've had a lot of these, and it seems like we've kind of moved beyond that. But the whole idea of COVID and what it took from us, and one of those things was the opportunity to have these measuring stick games in November, with a team like that rolling into town, rather than last year where we kind of didn't know what we were dealing with the Canadian division. I just had a moment where I was like, yeah, this is great. Even though it was a 1-0, 2-0 game, and even though a lot of the people in the chat room aren't appreciative of the style of hockey that the New York Islanders played, as a journalist who covers this and kind of digs into this, I was appreciative of getting to see this Winnipeg Jets team and how they stacked up against a team that, you think is going to the Stanley Cup final this year. I've been on the record. I think it's the Florida Panthers that are going to come out of the East this year. But I'm glad that we got to see that, and I'm glad you were all along for the ride.
Sorry, one quick one. When we're talking about the Islanders, we think of, for people of our vintage, Sean, we think about Mike Bossy, and Mike Bossy going through a challenge, I think, with cancer right now. I think so many people had Mike Bossy Red Titan turbos growing up. Just another, again, we know there aren't a lot of Islanders fans on here, but we're thinking of the Bossy family during these challenging times.
This is a good one. Would K&R exist without COVID? The answer is a resounding no. So, yeah, hey, that's one of the good things to come out of COVID. Ken's and my weight loss and K&R. Those are the two things.
The two good things that came out of that. Yep, that's right.
You bet. Last thing, if you like what you see here, please go to our page, click like on our videos. If you haven't subscribed, what's taking you so long, get at it. We're giving away tickets on the show. We gave away pizza before, and we're giving away hot takes left, right, and center. And every once in a while, a couple wake ups from Ken.
Sorry, hang on a second. There might be a game on Tuesday. There might be.
That's what I was saying. So
yeah,
before we go
of course you're.
You know what? Why don't we just start it now? We're starting to give away tickets to the next ice game after this one. So how we're going to do this? We've changed this. Don't leave your comments. Leave your comments if you want to leave comments, but that's not how we're choosing ice tickets. You can send a direct message with your email to either my Twitter account, SN Sean Reynolds.
Sorry, next game's Wednesday, so we're good. We're in the clear. We'll
start lining up now. Start lining up now. Send direct messages.
Can you go on Wednesday?
Yeah, there you go. If you can go on Wednesday, that's when you go see the ice. Who, you know what? You may just see our boy Sammy Cosentino there because he's rolling into town to do some work on.
Sorry, I'm actually going to the game on Wednesday with Sam. Actually,
there you go.
Going to the game with Sam. Yep, there you go.
Thanks for the invite. I'll text Sam as
you got a family. You got a family to look after. We're at the rink every night, buddy.
Excuse, Ken. Thanks a lot. Anyways, everyone, click like, go subscribe. It's been great talking with you. Thank you so much for joining us. We will see you on Tuesday.